So I very much doubt you and I would disagree on the problem of wokeness. It's very real. It's very serious. It's further embedded in institutions than most people care to admit, I feel. I tend to worry because you're someone who is a radical activist. What you were doing with American Atheists and at the time and place you were doing it was radical and brave at that point in time in America, challenging the state essentially and their relationship with Christianity specifically. You have this radical mindset, and I think you mentioned it at the start of the podcast, you're not afraid of using rhetoric that's a little bit on the edge, a little bit close to the line. And I often wonder, is this something that you may take in the other direction now? You're focusing your ire on this woke ideology, and for some reason, fair or not, it's become thought of as a right-wing pursuit because we're specifically attacking the left. It appears to be the left's issue here. I'm personally a left-wing liberal who's anti-woke. I don't know where you fall on the political scale. Maybe we can get to that. And I just worry and wonder if your journey to this side of the political spectrum might get to a sort of what was the word I used? Radical end, because I heard you speaking on a podcast not so long ago, and they were discussing the death of George Floyd, and I think everyone was in agreement that was an injustice. But I think you referred to him as a piece of human garbage at one point. And
Yep.
I'm not sure if you still feel the same about them comments. Maybe you can put them into context for us. But at the time, it felt rather unnecessarily callous. Even if you do believe that to be true, even if it is true, perhaps it just feels rather unnecessary or not particularly useful to say if you want to get your point across. I mean, it certainly doesn't tie up with a sort of humanistic worldview to me to call him, a man that's died unfairly, a piece of human garbage. Maybe you can just put those words into context for us and tell us what you meant.
So sure. So I went a little too far calling George Floyd human garbage, but my point stands. Okay, George Floyd. You can say anything about him, but you can't say that he was the kind of guy that you would invite to dinner. Okay. He was a 5-time felon. He was committing another felony. He was high as fuck on meth. People called the cops on him because he was walking around high as fuck on meth. Jacob Blake was human garbage. Okay. And he was arrested 30 times before Kamala Harris went to go see him. 30 times. Okay. And so when I was making these statements, I'm making these statements because I think it's important for us to realize that felons matter less than the rest of us. Okay. And they should. I think when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, a lot of times what we're talking about is Black criminals, Black felons committing yet another felony. And my point saying that was I care a lot less about felons, no matter what color they are, obviously, committing yet another felony than I do for the people who are just driving in their car or putting their kids in their cribs. And that when we talk about Black Lives Matter and we talk about felons getting killed by cops in the act of committing yet another felony versus the black on black violence, which affects 30 times more people. And most of them are innocent.
Okay. So just to pick up on a quick point, I'll definitely agree with you in terms of the claims and goals of BLM and the complete disregard and almost ignorance towards black on black violence and the devastation that caused.
Willful ignorance.
Yeah, willful ignorance. That's the phrase I was reaching for. Also, I will appreciate as well that a lot of the black deaths at the hands of police have been completely misrepresented a lot of the time. But it feels like to me with George Floyd, we have a clear-cut example of somebody, albeit a criminal background, but at that point in time, he wasn't a threat to the officers, as far as I could tell. They should have really taken him in alive. He deserved due process. The police have to deal in a humane way, regardless of who they're dealing with. And it just feels like you've lost sight of that a tad. When
I don't think I have, though, Stephen, because these cops are making life and death decisions many, many times a day.
Sure. And
many, many times a day, when they arrest somebody, they put their hands behind the back. I would say 100% of the times the convict says, "Oh, you're hurting me." 100% of the time. Okay. They opened the door for George Floyd. And he says, "I can't breathe." Before he said anything, he says, "I can't breathe." The man was high as fuck. The man was dangerous and strong. I am not a cop. Okay. But one thing I can say from the video that I saw is that it wasn't racially motivated.
Okay, that's a different issue. I mean, that's a very inconvenient truth for the activist and cities burning and things we've seen. Is that for all we know, we don't we can't really claim or corroborate that race had anything to do with that. But I suppose that's a second.
It's just assumed, and so people were rioting for this 5-time felon who probably died of meth.
Possibly. So I will happily, or willingly, should I say, put aside the racial component because I don't think that's been established. I'll wait to see if they come up with something I'm unaware of. But I think it's the knee on the neck for 7 minutes most people are horrified by. And I feel like we should be horrified about that, whether it's a black man, a white man, whether he's resisting arrest or not. It just feels like that is a level of excessiveness that is unjustifiable in any context.
Maybe, but I'm not a cop. Okay. And these guys do it all the time. And there were 4 of them there. And he was high on meth and a knee on the neck for somebody who's been saying, I can't breathe since before you put him on the ground. I am not willing to say that these folks did anything wrong. I'm not a cop. Okay. If you don't like it, then change the cop policy. But I mean,
aren't they facing murder charges?
It's not murder. That wasn't murder. Okay. It wasn't murder. Okay, somebody died while being apprehended by cops while high as fuck on meth. I don't care. He was 5 times arrested. He was counterfeiting. I don't care. I care about the little girl in the car who was driving through the Wendy's parking lot who was shot by the fucking people protesting for Black Lives Matter for this guy.
But I think people might notice you've spent the first half of this podcast talking about due process and the possibility of redemption, but you don't care that a man's died in police custody unnecessary. I mean, it seems...
I do care about due process, okay? I care about due process. Everybody who gets arrested should get due process, and everybody who goes through the penal system comes out clean in my eye, okay? If you commit a felony, you come out, you're not a felon anymore, okay? As far as I'm concerned, felons can be reformed, wonderful people, great. But while you're in the act of committing yet another felony, I don't care. I don't care, and nobody should. Okay? If you're in the act of committing yet another felony, nobody is forcing you. It's not white oppression. It's not systemic racism. It's you committing yet another felony. And if you get killed committing yet another felony, black, white, Latino, or Asian, or Jewish, I don't care. I don't. You shouldn't commit a felony. Stop committing felonies and you won't get shot by cops.
I feel like we're so close on this issue yet miles apart at the same time. So I'm gonna try and come in a different way here. So I think I share your opinion of George Floyd, the man. I'm not going to treat him as a martyr. I was annoyed to see in my home city of Manchester, actually, a mural with his image was erected on the wall, as if he's somebody to celebrate, which I completely oppose. And I will happily talk about his past indiscretions, his crimes, things he's done. I probably wouldn't like the guy, and I probably wouldn't like him around anyone I love. That's a given. However, I tend to feel none of that matters the moment you're in police custody and you're not a direct threat to life. And that's what seemed to be the situation when they had this man. They had him on the ground, several officers on top of him. He's saying he can't breathe. One of them puts the knee on his neck. To me, that seems like, I think the nicest possible thing you could say about that is bad policing. And there should have been a moment there, or at least a possibility of this man being taken in alive. It seemed like it was their carelessness and their actions that prevented that from happening, rather than George Floyd. It did. And I care about that. I feel like if you want a just system and an effective police force, they have to do better than that in them situations. And I completely grant how difficult police is. I always tend to side on the side of police. I know it's a life or death situation every time they have a confrontation with a violent perpetrator. A lot of times I've noticed that police shootings seem just when others will argue they're not. But in this particular case, it feels very clear cut to me.
I mean, I saw the video and it does seem one-sided. I'm not doubting that. And I'm not saying it was great police work either.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying it was great police work. I'm not saying there should be no penalties. I'm not saying there should be no prosecution. I'm not saying that things shouldn't be reviewed. I'm not saying that George Floyd deserved to die. Please don't say I said that.
Okay, that's good. That's where I thought you was going. I thought it felt a bit of like he deserves what he gets, kind of. attitude.
No, I
Right.
say felons deserve what they get while they're committing crimes. Okay. And I say that if you commit a crime and you're in the middle of a crime and you get shot by a cop, I'm not shedding a tear, not one. Okay. If you're committing, I mean, it's a difference. If you're starving and you steal a loaf of bread to feed your starving family, I'm all about the empathy. But if you're committing your 5th or 30th felony and you get shot and killed, I don't care. The world is better off without you. That's a hard thing to say, but it's true. For if you're an ex-felon, the world is not better off without you because you've reformed. You're not a member of the bad guys anymore. But if you are, I mean, I'm not falling all over. I'm not crying. I'm not shedding a tear. I'm not standing up and saying, "Oh no, we," because being a cop is hard, Stephen, and I don't know a damn thing about it.
Yeah. There's a
And
lot
so
of
for me
armchair
to
policing going on social
right,
media for sure.
and I don't know what the policies are. I don't know what the procedures are, and I don't know what it feels like to have my life on the line every day, and to get a call to say, "Hey, Dave, there's a guy with a gun. Go fix it." Okay, that's a fucking scary thing to say, and these people get that all the time, and I mean,
Hey, if you think the discussion on this is bad in America, you want to try speaking to someone in the UK about it, because at least in American culture, you understand what a firearm is and how dangerous they are, and how 1 second too late is too late.
yes,
In the UK, there's this sort of mindset that the police should be almost wait to be fired upon before they can return fire, which is it's a complete inability to understand the escalation of violence with lethal weapons thrown into the mix,
really
which is a unique situation from America. So I would never.
cops are good people. Okay, cops are
yeah.
good people. They're trying to do good work. Okay, and we need to defend them a fuck lot more than we defend our felons.